Hey friends, welcome to Ask Shane B. I'm Jeremy Jakwa with Shane Bernard from Shane and Shane. What's up, dude?
Hey, Jeremy.
Hey, Shane.
Good to see you, man.
It's so good to see you.
Great to be here.
Good to be here. Excited to jump in.
Let's do this.
Okay.
We got a great question.
We do have a good question. So this is from Garrett.
I don't know if we can answer it,
We're sure going to try.
but it's a great question.
We're going to give it a good, good shot. Hopefully you'll be entertained even if we don't answer the question.
All right.
Okay, so it says, "Hey Shane, thank you for all you do for us worship leaders. I'm a young worship leader and I've taken so much from your podcasts. Your practical advice is so helpful. I've noticed that there have been choirs in some of your recordings. I wanted to get your whole philosophy on worship choirs and how you integrate them into a modern sound. Also, what are some ways you help teach parts, encourage participation? Thanks for your time, Garrett."
Awesome. I told Jeremy just before we started, Garrett, that where's Garrett from? Does it say?
It doesn't say.
If you're from the Midwest, maybe you know this game that I grew up with because of my mom, who's from Ohio, called euchre.
I have no idea.
Yeah. And so, you play with, say, 4 people, and you have a partner, and, you have the kind of the bowers, the big bower and the small bower, and that sort of dictates what's trump. And sometimes you bet on a hand, but you don't have much, and so you're really hoping that your partner has a lot in his hand that can, pull some weight. So that's how I feel about this episode, Jeremy, is I'm just banking on all of your choir experience.
As a drummer in a contemporary church for the last 12 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me start here. I'm just going to read Ephesians 5:18 through 21. This is, a pillar that is used on how to be wise, how to walk in wisdom. And I think it's the last one in Ephesians. The first couple of chapters in Ephesians are like, this is all that Christ has done. And then the last, I think, 3 chapters are, in light of that, here's how you would walk. And this is the last pillar of how to walk in wisdom. And it's crazy that it says this. Here we go, verse 18. "And do not get drunk with wine, but be filled with the Spirit, addressing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody to the Lord with your heart, giving thanks always for everything to God the Father in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ." And it's wild to me that, one, being filled with the Spirit, the very next thing it says is sing together. And not only sing, but I think an important word in there, important phrase, singing and making melody to the Lord with your heart. And so when I think about having a choir, a church choir, I've only done it once. I've sang with a good handful of choirs, but at our particular church, not too long ago for the Hymns Live thing, we recruited a choir. When I think of the biggest win for a choir, and for the choir themselves, and then just for the body themselves, I think of that with your heart, like worshiping Him in an authentic way, in spirit and in truth. And so I think of a choir much more as a tool to encourage singing versus a tool to encourage listening. And some choirs, I think we've been up to the Brooklyn Tabernacle in Brooklyn a few times, and they do both of those well. They'll have these moments where the choir is going to sing, and you're just encouraged to just take it in and receive, and it's really, really great. It takes a ton of work, and there's 300 folks in the choir ish, and they're the same 300 folks that come every single Sunday, and they're coming, and that's not a small feat for them. I mean, they're all coming on railways, and I mean, there's no parking. So, I mean, you can imagine how just the chaos of everyone getting there. But I would say the most precious thing, and even when they're doing a song that says a little bit more performance-y, I mean, the congregation is participating. I mean, the ones that I've been in the room for, I don't know. Even on the performance-y songs, I don't know who's louder. The congregation or the choir, because where I would sit, it would be right in the middle of them. And then when we would sing songs that we did a couple psalm songs, Psalm 23 and Psalm 34. And I don't know who's louder, the choir behind me who are all doing parts or the congregation in front of me, because I didn't even really have any monitoring. It's just a flood of voices. And what I feel about that room is they are making melody to the Lord with their heart. And so I would say that would be just 30,000 foot view of if you're going to do a choir, not to do it, or when I'm looking at it, I don't want to do it because we need another thing, or this church is doing it, so that makes us feel like we need to do it. I'm doing it if, and really only if, it's going to help us accomplish Ephesians 5:18-21 and Colossians 3:16, that the word of Christ would dwell richly in us as we teach and admonish one another in all wisdom through singing songs, hymns, and spiritual songs, grateful to God in our heart. And if it's accomplishing those things, then I think by all means it is like worth it. Whether you do this once a quarter or once a year, or whether you do it every single week, I think that is the key. So on the hymn steel, I'll just tell you what we did, and I think there might be some things that I say that could be, I think, really helpful. I mean, this could be life-changing kind of stuff. And some of this stuff I've just observed over the past few years as I'm like hanging out with different producers who've done things, or different folks who are getting a choir together. And so we just threw an email out, recruited some folks, and I think there was 60 or 80 folks. I thought it would be cool to almost connect the room with the stage. That was sort of what I would like to see. We've actually, after we did the live choir, we did it at a conference that we do called the Linger Conference, and we did that very thing. We connected the stage with the audience in that we are just singing together. And it was just so special, where there's just the divide goes away where we're singing at you. No, we're all now singing at each other, teaching and admonishing one another. So that's what we tried to accomplish on the hymns live thing. We just didn't have enough people to like film this huge stage, and it would have looked kind of funny because it would have been like just one little circle line. We would have done that. And so we got them there. We had one night to run the whole set, which was, 12 songs, I think. And then basically just run it. And then the next night was the live recording of it. And the way that we taught parts was really, really simple. We sent every person who was going to be in the choir, we sent them the harmony link from the worship initiative. So on every song page, there's an MP3 of the high harmony and the low harmony, however you want to say that, alto, tenor, those parts are on there. And so we were just, we're not doing anything fancy. We're just going to have, we're going to sing the song together. So when we sang In Christ Alone, the choir's just singing with it. I mean, we're just singing so that it's not like, let's lay out of the verse and then come in with the chorus. No, we're just all singing, and we're trying to encourage the rest of the room to just go to the Lord and sing. And but in the courses, we would have people break off in harmonies, and it definitely would create the feeling like there's parts going on. And the way that this is just a little trick that we did, and this is just totally for free for those of you out there. This doesn't cost anything. When we rehearsed on Friday night, we would sing through the entire song together with the band and the choir. We'd already rehearsed the band, so when the choir got there, we were all ready for them. And so we would get through the song, and then after the song was done, we would keep the click track rolling. And, I had my guitar and vocal in the wedge so they can kind of hear enough. And they had some keys, some pad in the keys. But if we tried to keep as much band noise out, so no drums, just enough for them to hear pitch. And they were staying in time because everyone really in the band would turn around and lead them in song. And so Jeremy on drums, Ross on bass, Adam on electric, Shane Everett would turn around. He was probably the best pep rally guy ever. And we're all just leading them in a couple extra choruses and a couple extra bridges of every song. And so after we would get done with the entire song, we would go into, and it was kind of worshipful. Because I wouldn't even say anything. I told them that leading up.
Right,
and so we just finish a song, and just like we would live, we would just start singing together. And that's a powerful moment. I mean, if you have it's like there's no band playing. It is just voices coming together, and being able to capture that was so cool and special. And that was just on the fly. I mean, we were just flying by the seat of our pants.
Oh yeah.
And the thought was we would capture that, and then we would and we were multi-tracking. We had all of our mics just into the soundboard, like the preamps in the soundboard. There wasn't any like major recording rig or whatever, but we had we were splitting that out in multi-tracking. So every channel we were capturing that individually versus just like a board mix. And so we had every channel. And so we had, I don't even know, maybe 6 mics set up for them, and then that were capturing the choir, 3 on each side, I would say, maybe 3 or 4 on each side. So it wasn't a ton. And then we took those tracks and we put them into the timeline of the song, and we used them for the next evening. And that was the only thing that was in the song, really. There might have been a couple of things that we had created that we stuck into the live mix as we did the concert. But we felt like it was we could get away with that integrity-wise. We could get away with that because
it's the same exact people.
It's the same people, and it's so hard. I mean, we actually have tried to do a choir last minute at a conference called the Linger Conference, and I just remember afterward. It was just nobody ever heard the choir, and so it was fun. It was a cool moment just because it's just to see people. It's like you're singing to each other, but it's so hard to get choir mics into the mix when you have drums. I mean, all those mics become drum mics,
totally,
and so you just can't push them. It makes the mix sound horrible. So you have to. There's a cap on what you can do, and so but if you supplement that with tracks that are literally just their voices, and it sounded great. Mm-hmm. And you can EQ it, and you can treat it, and then you can throw it in. You can just put it into whatever. If you use Pro Tools, you could use it in GarageBand, whatever post program that you use. You can put a little reverb on it. You can kind of make it sit right, and then you just bounce down that stem and you put that into the timeline, whether you're using Ableton. There's several different things that you can use, different podcasts, different time. But and then you're supplementing. So when we did the live concert, it was probably 50-50. And I was surprised by that. I mean, Reese, who was our running sound at the time, said that 50% of what we were hearing was the actual choir. He was able to get some level, but then he was able to push it with the other level, and that just created such a cool. And even on the live record, Jared Fox was telling me that's about what he did too. So it's like we have room mics, we still have all the choir mics. The night we recorded it, we're still capturing all those voices, and then we're just able to supplement all the choir vocals with no drums or instruments in them. It's just the vocals. And so that was really helpful for us in just delivering something that would bless the body and encourage the body to sing. Because if you can't hear them,
right?
I mean, you have a visual tool, but you don't have anything coming at your ears.
Sure.
And so we wanted to make sure that we can take advantage of all these people who gave their time and to get it through the speakers. And that was so helpful. So that's one tool. And then, this is normal choir stuff. I mean, some of you listening to this, you're years and years, decades, some of you maybe into running choirs, and please help us. I mean, the next time. But, as we were doing it, we were learning about, we would do a song and somebody would walk up to me and, I had a handful of people just paying attention to what it was sounding like. And they're like, there's a lady somewhere on the right side. She's real loud and real passionate. And
carrying notes a little longer than everybody else.
Just the waveform of that vibrato was going deep. You know what I'm saying? And so, we'd have to just we'd have to stop and just go, okay, so don't know who it is. We have to compress our voices. The loud ones we want to come down, the soft ones we want to come up, because the whole point is us singing as one to God. So we want to hear every texture of every voice, and that's what makes it special. So if we're hearing one texture on a 10 and one texture on a 3, that's just no good because we'll never hear the 3. So we need the 3 to come to a 5 and the 10 to come down to at least a 6. And and so we did some of that just in that evening, as far as just encouraging them, try to give them a vision to where it's not about any individual, but it's about the perfect individual, Jesus, who we're trying to just help people take advantage of singing so that the word of Christ would dwell richly, so that when we sing about him, that the Spirit of God would ignite our heart for Jesus and that we would believe who he is and what he's done for us. And so that's some things we had to do as just that Friday, rehearsal recording went on. And I would say maybe this is the last thing I think I have to say is, and I learned from the Brooklyn Tab when we were up there, bless your choir. And so if you're going to sign up for a choir, don't do it until you have a budget to bless them. I would say make that step one of when we have the choir, we're going to have the most epic chicken nugget Chick-fil-A. I mean, we're gonna get the largest one they have, and then we're gonna times 10 that thing, and it's gonna be the biggest mound of nuggets, and nobody's ever gonna even get to the. They don't even make a dent and get every sauce.
Be famous. Everybody wants to join your choir.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
They'll give you a pile of nuggets, man.
Yeah, and at Brooklyn Tab they do. I mean, it is early Sunday, and I think they get done around 3 because they have a service after lunch.
Wow.
And they wait on the Lord, in their services, so they're not in a hurry, and especially in that last service. And they provide, an epic meal. And so, people, that's one of the things they look forward to, and praying together. This is a big part of their devotional life. And again, even if that's once a quarter or once a year, this could be a moment in the choir's life. And I think it was for these folks, that their lives would forever be changed. Not at the one where we recorded for our body, but at the rehearsal, where we actually got to sing. And that was just some special moments where we're going, bless the Lord, his mercy is more, bigger than my sin. I think that my sin is too big for the blood of Jesus to cover, and it's not. And we were teaching and admonishing one another. It was just it was gorgeous. And so I would just say, make sure, whatever that looks like, get a couple lamps for your green room, whatever. I don't know. Just think about that as you're going into, if you're going to take the step to do a choir, just have some thoughts going in of I want them to want to do this again and again and again. And if nothing else, man, the choir, I want their life to be changed. And so come at it with purpose. And man, this night of rehearsal is not just rehearsing for some event that's going to be life-changing. No, the rehearsal is a life-changing event. And all of our rehearsals should be that.
Absolutely.
That this is not some one-off thing where we're practicing for the moment that we're going to be spiritual or something. No, this is a moment where we're singing to God, and God can do something in that. And so that's just
Great.
a couple things.
That's great. That's such a good reminder, and that's so true about that night, just the rehearsal night. Like, it was such an encouraging time.
Yeah.
Like, for an event that could have been, it's a big, we're thinking about a lot of moving parts and a lot of things that have to be executed and all that kind of stuff. But man, it was such a gift to, like, I had like the coolest seat in the house.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in that drum set surrounded by
Mm-hmm.
this choir. Just, my overhead mics were turned up, so I heard them
Mm-hmm.
like the whole time. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Such a gift. And I think, as far as like how anyone can apply this, is to not if you hear us talking about using the tool of pre-recording and then using that later and using it to supplement, like, that can be an incredible tool, but that can also sound really overwhelming to a lot of people. Like, how do I record? And you don't have to overcomplicate that. Just like Shane was saying, that could literally be in GarageBand or whatever. Or just remembering that that there's just, to the point of like what we're talking about in that rehearsal time, there's so much value and worth in just having a large group of people singing, however that gets executed. I think you're right to be thinking through, how do I teach parts? How do I encourage participation? How do I do these things? Absolutely. Like, think through those things. Be strategic about those things. But at the end of the day, I think as far as integrating a choir moment into modern worship or whatever, if you, like, the win for you is, do you have a group of people up on the stage that love Jesus, that want to sing authentically, and that then do that in a way that is going to, biblically, it is going to, if done in an authentic way, teach and admonish and accomplish the Colossians 3:16 principle.
Yeah.
And so to, like, just be free in that as you're pursuing people to bring into that, if you don't ever have a choir and you're trying to figure out how to do the choir, or if you've had a choir for years, how to encourage your choir to not be rote and mundane and this is just what we do. We go show up for the choir. It's what I've done for 20 years, and I'm going to go sing the things, and that's what I do. But to, like, encourage an existing choir of how big of a deal it is to be a part of that type of tool that God really does desire to use to build up the body. And so
I think the overall mission and vision of keeping that before your singers, it makes or break it breaks everything. If you have a vision, and whether that's an email that you send out, and then the first 5 minutes when you get up before that choir, for you to just do heart business. Like, I've never been one, whether it's players in my band or a choir, to go, okay, guys, we need to lift our hands in this moment, and I've never even really been able to, like, say, get that stank face off, your face, and put a smile on there. Rather, if I feel like someone is struggling in their walk with God, then I feel more of the obligation to walk alongside to ask them questions of, like, what's wrong?
Yeah.
You don't is something wrong?
Right.
Right. More than, it's just like, I want to worship him in spirit and truth, and I might even come up and I might lead with Psalm 63, that because his love is better than life, my lips will praise him, and I will bless him for all my days, and in his name I will lift my hands. I might even do that. It's like, it's okay, but Jesus came and plastered everything external, and he drew it all internal. And so I just want people who are, I think that we can all sing these songs authentically, and maybe the devotional before that would be addressed to all those who don't think they can sing authentically. Of, like, you think because of your sin you're disqualified from saying these things about God. How can I do this? How can I stand and say these things when my life? How can I say, oh, I love you, or this is what you look like, when my life is not saying that as well? And maybe you come back and say, man, lead with Paul saying, "Hey, Jesus came for sinners. I'm the foremost, and he put his patience on display in me, so that as the foremost, people would come to know him." And maybe you're just by faith going, "This is not my record. I'm not singing about my record. I'm singing about his record."
I mean, what a more powerful thing to be happening is a group of people aware of how unqualified they are to be singing.
Yeah,
and singing from that place than a group of people shining it on.
totally.
Like, I don't care. I don't care how many hands are lifted in a choir and how physically engaged and excited they look.
Yeah,
If their hearts are far from God and in the dark.
yeah,
Who cares?
yeah,
You know, like we've had some choirs at our church before for big events, and it's like we don't do choirs often, and the best singers and the most devoted folks were not all that expressive.
yeah,
You know, and it's just they're there and they're focused and they're put together and they're executing, and part of that's kind of like, hey, be free. Like, it's not the end of the world if you don't nail your part, and like
Yeah.
like if you desire to be expressive, you
Yeah.
should. But but it's like there's so much power and there's so much encouragement in those moments. I mean, really, because it is a group of people who are walking in the light and are singing from a place of dependence and awareness that they are unqualified, but they have just been invited in. That's true of your band. That's true of your preacher. That's true of
yeah,
your whole team. I mean, anybody doing any ministry at all. Like, of course, we're unqualified.
yeah,
You know, and so it becomes a much more powerful and tangible expression of what the church is and what the gathering is and what singing congregationally is.
Yeah.
The more you put that in front of your people.
totally. And again, we'll shut this thing down, but we're pretty new to the choir thing.
Sure.
And so these are just some things we see in our folks and our experience through the scriptures. I've been to some choirs that rock back and forth together, and it seems like it's this huge blessing. And so for those of you who, do it a certain way, I think the encouragement is make sure to lead out with the heart.
Absolutely.
When Ephesians 5 says, just to wrap it up and bring it back, addressing one another with psalms, hymns, spiritual songs, making melody to the Lord with your heart, giving thanks for everything to God the Father, submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ. And so just make sure that this isn't just something that you're doing to, check the box and move on to feel better about yourself, but you are enjoying Jesus. I mean, one of my favorite words, when we come together and sing, I think of a lot of R's. Words. This is another podcast. I'll just tee it up. The next podcast like this, that we remember what he's done, that we remind each other of what he's done and who he is, and then we receive. And so the receiving is all we have. And so when you come to give, just make sure you're receiving from the Lord. And so what do we have to offer? We have our good voices or our awesome harmonies or parts or our hand motions. All we can do is receive, come to him and go, oh, let my worship be a big drink from your grace. I mean, that's how you worship something, is you take a drink and say, that was really good, and I need to tell somebody about it. And so just make sure you're receiving and not just thinking that you have something to offer, but no, drink deep when you come. And I think if we do that, if we model that, then people will want that too.
It's good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Y'all, thank you for your questions. Keep them coming. Send them to AskShaneB@worshipinitiative.com. We love you guys. We're praying for you. We'll see you next time.